hybrid cloud type solution and get your feedback. And so the three of us have probably some different strengths and to contribute to the conversation, but more importantly, you'll drive the conversation. So I guess I'll kind of start is that what I can tell you is I've been involved certainly with Citrix and that type of solution for a long time, and even before that, the use of PC Anywhere and some other tools to have a remote desktop. And most recently, started playing with the Citrix receiver again, even in the Windows 8 environment, which they had just released. I mean, that just came out. So I've been playing with that and seeing a couple of things, like any dev environment, that were a little unusual. The Windows sizing on a multiple monitor scenario in Windows 8, the type of things you would expect with an RC candidate and a dev cycle. So kind of spent some time this summer playing with that, and also had sort of a behavioral realization of the different kind of personality types. Talk about Myers-Briggs if you're in my speech the other day, and the different quadrants. But there's some people that cannot, should not, or would not be a right candidate for a full-on desktop experience. There's just too many distractions and possibilities to get sidetracked. And so the Citrix receiver session, that's a beautiful thing for the right fit. You can lock that down, and this is what you do when you work for SMB Nation. Thank you very much. Oh, you don't want to work for SMB? Okay, well, that's okay. Thank you very much, even more.
Harry,
but yeah.
When you talk about using, if I may, you talk about using Citrix receiver, what are you talking about using on the back end?
So you go to a hoster, in our case, and Tom will talk more about this, but in our case we're using Horizon Private Cloud is the hoster for the backend. And Karl, you'll be able to talk about the virtualization that we're tapping into.
So what I'd like to get to is, are you using presentation server, are you using XenApp, are you using Beginner Box, are you using desktop?
You can use any terminal server. It's just on top of terminal server. And
Well,
then it hosts whatever
That's right.
you want to host. And you run the receiver and the
That's not the whole, that's not entirely true, but okay. I mean,
Okay, well, hold on. Let me get through the introductions. And thank you, by the way, for participating. That's really cool. I haven't even introduced the whole team. You know, they come through the smoky cheerleader tunnel into the field. So now at quarterback, Tom Poole, starting quarterback. Okay, woo! Sunday football. And coming in at wingback, Karl Palachuk. Woo!
Hey, Karl. I thought Karl was a tight end.
Hey.
So with that said, Tom, why don't you make a couple of comments about what your intentions are? Karl, you do the same, and we'll come right back to you too. Okay.
So essentially, can you guys hear me okay, by the way?
Yep. Oh, you know what, but with the video, if you can go ahead and go to Mike.
It's the same thing my last one they said not.
And by the way, are you more coming out? I'm totally.
No, this is
okay.
great. This is great. Okay, can you hear me okay back there? So from a standpoint of today's session, I think Harry's exactly right. What we're really looking for is to communicate some of the things we're seeing with what I'll say VDI and virtual desktop. And for those of you that are more technically inclined than I, you could probably even tell me more about that. But the reality is what we're seeing is as employees, especially the younger ones, are showing up on the work site with their own devices, and that's what they want to use, and employers are trying to put, essentially some of the younger and some of the more seasoned employees are saying, I really want to use what I want to use. I really don't care what you supply me. There are some opportunities and some challenges that come up. Obviously, the opportunities is that with the Citrix receiver and some of those things is that you have the ability to view your work environment on any device with a consistent UI across the devices. Another advantage would seem to be that it really is an image, it's not actually the data. So if that falls into the water or somebody else picks it up and takes it, there's very little from a security issue standpoint. That's the goodness of it. What I'm interested to hear, because many of you have worked in either VDI or virtual desktop scenarios, is certainly there's connectivity and latency or issues. But there are other issues. And what I'd like to do is see this evolve into kind of an open roundtable because, feedback is the breakfast of champions. We're just getting ready to, this is not designed to be a shameless plug, but we're just getting ready to launch on January 1 Cloud Nation, which will embrace this. And I want to hear from wiser minds some of the things we should be looking for. So that's kind of my objective with this, to share what we're seeing, but also just as much to get your feedback.
Carl?
Is this on?
Yep.
All right. I'm primarily grateful that there's a wall between us, and I'm kind of hoping for plexiglass based on the introductory comments here, and the slings and arrows that may be coming this way. I'm just here to, I guess, look at it a little bit from, we have some experience on the server side, and Mike and I have looked at different ways that we can try to deploy virtual desktops that are commercially viable. And so far our challenge has been, when we run it for a while, I wouldn't put my clients on that, right? So it's like, what do we need to do? What do we need to get to so that we either lower people's expectations or raise the technology that we're using? It's just the reality of it's really cool and you can make it happen, but then when you go to deploy it and you got a bunch of clients and you're imagining to yourself, if I had 1,000 desktops with this, would I still be in business, right? We have to go slowly because we can't deploy the wrong thing. So we're always out kind of looking and being careful. And it's been a while, we're getting closer, but probably 3 or 4 years, we have been looking at trying to figure out what we can do with this. And so we're not completely pleased with anything we found. There's also a sense that, to what Tom was just saying, we used to have an environment where everything is locked down. 10 years ago, all of us had total control over most of what our clients did. And then we had things like, USB hard drives started showing up. And you'd go into a client's office and suddenly there's an extra 350 gigs here and 200 gigs there. And, you look around the office and there's 2 terabytes of storage being used for random things. Stuff isn't being backed up, and it just makes me, not sleep at night. And now people show up and, I got an iPhone and I got this and that and the other stuff, and it all needs to be supported. And it's more and more, I think we're going to move in that direction. And as IT people, we have no choice but to give up some of the control over what folks are doing with the stuff that just shows up. And what we do have to do is figure out how we can manage it profitably and not, have a client that can call us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week and expect us to work for free because we sold them a $300 device and made $4 profit.
Well, with that said, Zach, let's go back to you.
So I've been working with what was Kavisa, purchased by Citrix, now Citrix VDI in Box. I've done a couple of deployments with clients and have had some pretty good success. I've learned a lot of lessons, and it's been interesting. I have also been looking, to back it up a little bit, I've been interested in virtual desktops for a very, very long time. We had worked with Citrix Presentation Server and XenApp. There are challenges in the terminal services environment that I got very tired of dealing with, tweaking applications and whatnot. So I was looking for a way to be able to have a virtualized desktop, repeatable, pristine every week or every day desktop experience for the user, especially specifically for those clients for whom a Windows desktop is a requirement.
Oh, come on in.
Oh.
It's fine.
Don't learn about VDI, you'll love it. So, VDI in a box, I think, is in my estimation right now, is definitely a commercially viable product. Implementation size is probably 20 seats and above. Below that, it doesn't work very well. It certainly is a lot easier to use than Citrix and desktop, which is, that's a whole other animal, a whole other beast, if you will. One of the challenges that I have found is, all right, in looking, those by the way have been on-premise solutions that I've developed for my clients. I've been looking for hosted-based solutions based on VDI box. I'm not starting over.
No.
Yeah. Repeat the last 3 things.
Exactly. So I've been looking for hosted solutions.
using the technologies that I want, that has been somewhat challenging to find third parties that are providing that. I don't think that I really want to be, I've been in the business of application delivery, I've had my own colo, I've had my own equipment. Like everybody else, I don't want to own the equipment, so I'm looking for third party solution providers for that. I have looked at companies like ThinkGrid who are doing a Quest V workspace type implementation, which don't use persistent, or that do use persistent desktops, and the challenges that come with that. I mean, I look at a persistent desktop in the sky, it's like, all right, I'm taking my LAN, I'm putting it in the sky, but I don't gain any economies of scale, I don't gain economies of having the same image, of being able to, you know, destroy an image and, or destroy a virtual workstation and reinstantiate it instantly. So I'm just kind of curious. I mean, that's the direction that I'm going. I'm curious to hear what experiences you had, what kinds of things you're looking at, and that's why I was asking you what you were using on the back end. You're saying using Citrix Receiver. Obviously, that's the client side technology.
Yeah.
What's going on the back end? I know there was one other gentleman here that I was unable to connect with this weekend who was doing VDI. So I'm very psyched. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having this discussion. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm kind of curious where we're going to go.
Well, one comment is that, you know, part of what I think that a lot of us are going to have to do is divide and conquer, in the sense of, you know, there's only so much you can do with the phone. Whether you like it or not, this is not going to replace your desktop. So I think that we need to think about not necessarily looking for a tool that can only replace a powerful desktop with instant performance, right? That there may be things where you say, look, if you're doing this application, that application, maybe in this role, this technology makes sense. But, you know, one of the things we learned early on with terminal services is there's always one machine that's got to be available because of graphics, or it's got to connect to an old line of business app or something like that. And so you don't put the same thing everywhere. So, and I don't know if I have an answer for you, except that maybe we need to think differently, that you do one thing on a tablet and a different thing on a phone and a different thing on a desktop, and now there are different kinds of desktops. And again, like we're learning with cloud versus on-site servers, maybe there's always going to be a piece that's a desktop with a processor underneath the cabinet, that's what you rely on for a lot of stuff, and it's just the way it is.
So we'll move on back to John.
I'll give you our experience doing this. They're all smaller clients, although the first one we did it for was Best Buy. But
Smaller Best Buy.
it wasn't a smaller Best Buy. It's a Best Buy.
Pre-scandal or post-scandal?
It's in Cincinnati, and it's called Warehouse B. And so when I say smaller, no one's over 20 desktops. Okay, they're all running it more or less in-house, except for Best Buy that runs in my basement, actually, believe it or not. And we use just virtual desktop. We found terminal server has its place, but there's always the problem you're talking about of this app doesn't really work on it, or this app doesn't really work on it. So we're running, Best Buy had to request, they had to run their cash registers on Windows XP. It's Microsoft's cash register system. Doesn't run on Windows 7. You had to run it on XP. And what they use me for is not run their real world cash register, but they do all their updates. They train all their people over the virtual desktops. And so we have to be able to blow those virtual desktops away when an update didn't work right and they want it back. And we found it to be the best solution so far. Had a new customer that had a older server, 2003, and we gave them a choice of 3 servers, kind of an adequate 1 CPU one, another one with 2 CPUs, 16 cores, third one, full out memory, both CPUs, 32 gigs of memory. And he just said, I'd be stupid not to go that way. We're using Wise thin terms,
Yeah.
HP thin terms. You get a little better performance on the video. So if you have people that want to watch video at the desktop, you need a little better thin term. We're probably gonna put Windows 8 on those machines.
Yeah,
Licensing for Windows desktop running as a VDI is $100 a year. It's not an OEM $145 copy, so you gotta kind of cook that into your
Plus volume licensing.
thing, yeah. So you gotta cook that into your price. But it gave them the ability, they had some old machines. And it was like, I think 3 or 4 machines, and it was a break-even way to go with upgrading their old. They have some AutoCAD guys, we aren't thinking of moving to this.
What
So
are you using for your desktop virtualization software?
we're just using Hyper-V. We aren't going with like VDI or X2. I'm looking for what other people are doing, but we just doing it. We make nightly backups. We can roll back a virtual desktop to today, yesterday, or day before. So this isn't something the way we're doing it that I could run 150 clients on.
So question, real quick. I don't know if you've logged into Azure where you can spin up a machine.
Yeah. In
Can
fact,
you
we
run these in
our
Azure?
stuff on Azure.
Right, so you could have 150 desktops in that environment because you got the bandwidth and
Yeah.
that'd be kind of cool.
And I haven't tried that. My customer, my largest customer has 50 workstations, period. So I tend to be on the smaller end of the scale, but going with a bigger server and running virtual desktops and starting to get rid of their XP machines and their older piece of hardware just made a lot of sense to them.
Man, I might do this on the plane on the way home. So if you did this on Azure, you could just turn the machines off at night and the clock stops and the money doesn't have to go out.
That's correct. We're running Azure. Tyler wrote some software to do our time and billing, and we do it on Azure. They're easy to deal with. It's a, you think of Microsoft as being hard to deal with sometimes.
No, I don't.
Azure.
No, I don't.
For the record.
No, I don't.
I gotta say, dealing with Azure has been super easy, and instead of the price going this way, the price has been coming this way.
Well, I'm not paid by Microsoft to do anything or say anything or whatever, but we have different cloud things that we've tried, and I gotta tell you, if you guys have not logged on, in 15 minutes, you can log on, create an account, go there, find out how much stuff you can get for free, spin up a server, put a database on it, literally in 15 minutes. And if you haven't done it, just do yourself the favor of experiencing what that takes and what it's like. And you get a whole bunch of stuff, not just them, but all the other cloud providers. They'll give you a whole bunch of stuff for free. You can sort of collect free servers in the cloud if you choose to do that.
We're running our own SQL database up there, and I think I paid $10 a month. Now it's just a little 3-person company, but I got full SQL, 3 licenses for it. We run it. It's doing our time collection, so it's not running that hard, but it's $9 a month. You can't even think of doing that, and it comes up like that.
Okay. We have another question, sir.
It was really more a comment. You can't run VDA on Azure. You have to own the hardware. So if you own the hardware, the server hardware, and you can go put it in a data center somewhere, you can go rent hardware from a hosting provider, but it has to be dedicated hardware. So you can't spin up VDA machines on Azure or anybody. So there are people who pretend to offer that service. What they're really using is like SPLA licenses, and they're spinning up Server 2008 R2 servers for every user, and they're using them that way. So I was asking the Microsoft here guy today about, he said they are having discussions about perhaps modifying the license agreement, but there's nothing set in stone yet. So I think this whole industry of VDI in the cloud is just stopping its tracks until Microsoft makes that move. And I'm not sure, there might be maybe, there might be some fear in that because it really could perhaps move the industry to the cloud a little faster than they like. So,
Tom, the other day, I think you educated me, there's, if I'm right, there's a distinction between VDI and virtual desktop. You were walking me through that.
Yeah, and I'm one of these guys that, I'm not the guy that has got the technical chops to get down and explain to you in a very detailed way, but we're working on a virtual desktop that isn't VDI, where you have to essentially, wherever you're hosting it, have an instance for each different user, where we can actually have virtual desktop and we can have multiple instances or multiple users on the same box or on the same virtual server. And what that does essentially is it makes it much more scalable in addition to more cost effective. And that's one of the things that we're seeing with that. And the licensing is also an issue. So, I'm loving this conversation because everything you guys are talking about are some of the things that frankly we're seeing. And then I just wanted to add this to it, is that I think what I'm seeing is that whether it's VDI or a virtual desktop, is that there are some real powerful uses of it, and there are some real silly ways to use it. And as an example, one of the things that we're working on right now with a partner is there's a worldwide sales organization, and they want 800 of the exact same desktops, but they really don't want the employees to be able to take that information home. And they want to be able to do updates to all of them all at the same time. And I think that that's probably, when you really think about it at its core, that's a good use of that. Another thing that we're looking at as an example would be, if you will, mini law firm in a box, where basically what you can do is you can go, okay, how many 1 to 4 people law firms are there in this world? And there's a lot. And to be able to go out and say, okay, we've taken a look at what law firms need, and here are the 7 common denominators. And when you get down to, or do you use Westlaw or PC Law, give them that option, because they might want that option. But at the end of the day, for them just to know that, these guys have thought about it, they've figured it out, everything we want comes immediately available, and we can spin it up with ease. I think those are just 2 examples of things that work just really, really well. The thing that I'm seeing is with a lot of power users, they try to escape off the virtual desktop and go back to their native desktop, and I get that too. And so that's where I think that's the litmus test is, to my way of thinking, if it's something that's effective and it's going to work for you, then you're not trying to sneak away from it and go back to your native desktop. What you're doing is saying, this really works well. Or in some cases, you're forced to say this really works well. But I think it's clear to me, the deeper I get, is that it isn't a one-size-fits-all, and it's not something that is effective and eloquent for everyone.
Yeah, that's how we implemented it, is like you, separate, each user has their own virtual desktop. And when they log in with the public IP address or a public IP or private, it takes them to their desktop. So they could be on this thin term in the morning, and they could go over to this thin term at night, and they're on their same actual desktop. If it breaks, you just pull out another thin term, and they can go to that. So that's how we've implemented it, just like you taught there.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Come back to that. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
We've been looking at this for a while, and I just want to let people know, I think most of the times you're looking at this is because the third-party app, and you should definitely make a call to the vendor, because I think it's the vendor's responsibility to be progressive, and they should be working to put that app in the cloud. And every time the vendor has beat us to the VDI by having a cloud-ready app. So we don't use it, because we just use hybrid cloud technologies. And I think VDI is a temporary solution because it's the stopgap for the non-cloud vendors, but the vendor should be in the cloud. And then you don't need the VDI, you just need the portal to the cloud.
And this is just another comment, is that we've all seen the massive proliferation of open APIs and the ability to basically go into single user sign-on and things like those. And I think you're right. I think that at the end of the day, the virtual desktop, in my way of thinking, is it delivers the same experience on multiple apps, right? But yeah, you're going to see SaaS providers, and everybody's going to want to have that single user sign on and that experience. And there's virtually no application provider that's just 100% server side anymore. They're all going to a SaaS model, I think. And so you're exactly right.
You know, just to add on to that, we may all be talking about the wrong thing if you think about a world in which your QuickBooks is only in the cloud, your Salesforce.com is in the cloud, your Office is in the cloud, right? Everywhere you go, all you really need is a thin client that connects to the internet, and the concept of the desktop goes away. Right? Why, take a step back. Why do I need a desktop? Well, I need a desktop because I want to sit down, I want to open up Internet Explorer, I want to get my QuickBooks, and I want to get my Outlook, and I want to run these things and create a Word document, and seriously, if I can do all that stuff without owning a computer, then the concept of the desktop goes away. All I really need to know is how do I get to QuickBooks, and how do I get to Word, and how do I get to Outlook? And in that environment, people are already competing against you. I've seen ads from Comcast, AT&T, and Staples that they will sell you everything you need in the cloud for whatever, so much a month. And I think what they're selling is terminal services, to be honest, but someday it will not be terminal services, it will be something else.
Well, there's a bigger existential conversation about why own anything in life. Why should we own anything ever? Okay, next question. Over here. And keep it close. Yeah, keep it close.
It's more of a comment into looking into the future of things. Karl's brother Manny made a comment that with the issue we're having with virtual desktops in the cloud, what's probably going to happen is a hybrid, where you're going to have some device that sits at the firewall and it serves up the graphics for the things that need graphics, and it serves up the things that the cloud cannot do yet. And you're going to have that same experience. It's just going to connect up through this little device. And then I believe one day this will be your computer, except that this will be your Cloud Connect device. You'll have and you see it with iPads already. You'll have a dock, you dock it, and there's your computer. You go home, you dock it, and there's your computer. It's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. So, that's great that we're having a conversation about it now.
Right. Excellent. Sir, question in row 3.
But doesn't that model of everything in the cloud start to silo data? Wasn't the promise of a PC that you could move between data, between QuickBooks, between things on your SQL server, all very seamlessly, and now we're siloing everything up in the cloud?
So that open this application and this application, and that's what we're doing now.
In some cases.
Sometimes those apps need to talk, is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
So you're saying if I have SQL over here and I got some line of business app, I need to connect those two, and I've somehow separated them if they're not on my desktop?
No, they've got to come together somewhere.
Because I got to tell you, just without endorsing any brand names, we have a cloud-based RMM system and a cloud-based PSA. Neither one of them installs on a SQL server in my office, but they talk to each other.
And do they talk to your cloud-based QuickBooks? Yes.
Yes. So it's sort of like, the ticketing system or the RMM can create a ticket because they talk to each other. So that's literally a matter of software, and they've got to own the bandwidth. A few years ago when we did the first demo of the Intel hybrid clouds at SMB Nation, when they first came up with this, they said, okay, we're going to get 20 computers in a room, and we're going to all connect live to the hybrid clouds at the office in Folsom. And I was like, stop, right? You have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. And they said, we're a Fortune 10 company. We will have the bandwidth. Those things will be rock solid. Nothing will go wrong, and it will work. And they did, and it did. And this was 2 years ago. So if you have the money, you can make it happen, right? And so more and more as these cloud-based operations learn to talk to each other, that will become a non-issue. But it's just a matter of just one more thing that they have to solve.
Okay, next question, please. I'll give you the mic, sir.
You know, in IT, we see things that are very cyclical. I mean, you see a trend towards outsourcing and then insourcing and then outsourcing back and forth. And there's obviously different drivers that go along with that. And Karl, I heard you last night, you were talking about looking for the next big thing and keeping an eye on that. And, you know, we saw going from dumb terminals to more intelligent terminals, and then we saw sort of a retraction back to more thin client style, and then an emergence more back to a fat client. And now, so we're seeing some back and forth here. I guess the question to you, Karl, is as you're looking at this stuff, I'm sure that's not lost. I'm sure you're seeing that, as many of you are. What are you thinking is, where do you see that trend going? As we talk about VDI, as we talk about things, obviously there's bigger drivers.
Are you asking like how we implement it or how we make money supporting it? Because, you know, I'm just in the making money kind of stage.
Well, making money is easy once we know where it's going.
No, but so the question, are you asking like, how would we implement it, or?
Well, like we're talking about VDI, the question is, what's the core driver to that? And somebody over here, I think, said it's really, they think it's more of an intermediary fix. It's really not the end goal. Can you talk sort of?
I would say big picture, that's kind of what I believe. I mean, I believe what we think of as a desktop is an old concept that is already on its way out. We just haven't figured it out yet, right? I mean, if you had a business where what you needed is for like a gym, right? You got a gym, and what people need to do is they need to come in and they need to clock in so they can get to work. Then they need to gather their class, and they need to take attendance, and then they need to find out who's working on each of these various things so we can get the exercises right. All of that can be done with a low-end, thin client connected to the internet and a cloud-based application for running your gymnasium. I mean, that exists, it's there, it's done. We just are not implementing because we think for some reason we got to put a laptop there, or we got to put a desktop there, or the boss wants to make sure his data lives underneath the desk, right? That's
Zach?
an old way of thinking about the world.
Question from Zach.
So I'm right there with you. You know, the question that always kind of kicks around in my mind when I'm talking about cloud-based apps, especially for retail environments, is, all right, great, the internet goes down. Now what?
But you know, that's the same as Exchange when the internet goes down. You've got a local component, like he was saying, you get some widget that does something locally and stores transactions that go up.
Let's talk today. Let's talk today with thin.
Salesforce connector. Yeah.
You know, if you have a thin client-based application today, and the server is in the sky, and your network connection goes down, you got nothing.
You can't sell anything.
You
I think for myself, when we are looking at that with our customers, and we're actually talking about where are you going to go, and that's the big question always. We want to move to the cloud, but what happens when we lose access to everything? We as implementers are saying, well, you have to have some kind of redundant form of a connection here. Throw a DSL line in there. There's a little bit of overhead cost to it, you know, and that doesn't fit everybody. The DSL doesn't. It has to almost be part of the implementation. You can't do this without that form of an answer in there for them.
Awesome. Second wham's down. Now what?
Yeah.
But you know, I mean,
What about the power down?
right?
Yeah,
Realistically,
there's always going to be, but there's that first.
Pterodactyls.
Yeah. Something could always happen. There's always going to be the possibility. I mean, tsunamis. But
You asked the same question. What if the power went out? Can you work? I mean, it's the same thing.
No, but you have a retail store. You have a retail store like Best Buy did, their warehouse B. If the internet is down and they can't get to their server, they can't sell anything. It has to be on site.
You can do a dual WAN or
You come up with dual lands, whatever you come up with, it can be cut.
And power can too.
And if the power's cut, people can't walk around the store. But if power's on, people walk around the store and they can buy stuff. They won't implement an in-cloud. Now that stuff all goes up to the cloud all the time, but they have to have it in the store, the database there, the products there, the registers have to talk to them.
So I've had
I've had several retail clients that had thin clients, or at each of their stores had a main central location, so they couldn't sell if the internet went down either, and that was zero issue. That was in Kansas, where it's not like in LA or
Did you just
somewhere.
make that up? That
I
sounds
did
like,
not make that
that sounds like, and this ain't Kansas.
But there's no issue. I mean, the internet goes down, used to go down all the time. How often does it go down now?
Depends on where you are.
If it's
Larry,
in Seattle,
like
it
to-
goes down once or twice a year.
Okay.
For how long?
I mean, is it
It's the last time it was 3 days,
all of Seattle?
pretty much.
Well, my only comment to this is, I agree with what she was saying. You know, when I'm talking to the client as part of implementation, you're having that conversation. You know, if you're in the cloud, you want to have a minimum of a second backup. Now, you cannot mediate, you know, you're trying to mediate risk. That's what you're trying to do. Well, I mean, 2, that's reasonable. I mean, if 2 go down, I mean, you're just gonna have to, that's just gonna happen, you know?
Go fishing.
I mean,
right.
so,
Yeah.
but 2 is reasonable. Beyond that, Dan, you know, hey, nothing's perfect, you know?
Yeah. That's called a trauma center at Harborview. I mean, you know, when they really go to, or Boeing jets, triple redundancy.
It seems challenging and it's easy. I agree with you.
You're talking about making solutions redundant. It's very, I hear you, I agree with you. At the same time, when you're staring a customer in the face who's got a business that's dependent upon the technology being up, and it's down for any reason, whether it's WAN, whether you get server down, whatever, you know, try explaining that to them. And that is a, you know, it's a real, having been through that, you know, through the ringer.
But you know, part of it is, you know, do you sell based on the exception of the rule? So I'm afraid to do this because 99.9% of the time the internet's up and the electricity works and the lights are on, right? But 1/10 of 1% of the time it's down, so I'm never going to sell that solution. Or do you solve something that is going to make 90% of the people happy 99% of the time, and then you work with the exceptions after that?
You give the customer the choice, Carl. Can they?
Customer doesn't know.
Yes,
Well-
they do. Can they accept the server down with a redundant internet connection, or can't they? They know that, and it's a cost of how much do they want to pay to try to be perfect?
That's absolutely.
Well,
And that's their decision. That isn't ours. That's a business decision. Do I buy 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, or $100 million worth of business interruption insurance? I don't
right.
know what to tell them, but they know what to do. They know, does it have to be running or doesn't it?
Yeah, John, Tom and I were in a conversation just the other day with an individual where, and it's interesting, we're seeing some of the same conversational dynamics where the conversation will come down to sort of the least case use, like this solution won't do this one thing for CPAs located in the US who care. So we got to wipe out the whole paradigm, okay? Because there's the CPAs and the specialization in the US will never use this. Well, so be it. But you get in these arguments where you get down to the least use case, right? When it really the other 99% of us, the solution meets your needs. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's always interesting. And I'm not being facetious. It's interesting that the conversations will flow to the exception case, not what I'll call the proactive case or the common use case. And that's natural with the techie that, well, won't do this.
Hey,
Okay.
Harry, I've got a little comment here, and just let's all rewind the movie a little bit and take a look at how some of this stuff comes up and how we overcome it. And you know, I guess a couple scenarios I'd look at would be, number one is, you know, I started my first internet company in early 1995, which was, you know, before Netscape was a company and before Microsoft had a product called Internet Explorer. And one of the early things with the internet is I'd never use my credit card online. I'd forget that. And what I'd ask people is, listen, what's more secure? Is someone typing that in, or are you going to a restaurant and handing that card to somebody and they walk around the corner and write your stuff down? I say, you know, come on, let's really take a look at that. I'll give you another example is I'm kind of a wannabe photographer. And when digital cameras came out, digital, you know, DSLRs, is the aficionados, the guys that really like the film. They're like, you know what? There's never a day that a digital camera is going to keep up with my film camera. Those guys are obsolete. There isn't anybody that says that anymore, and nobody. And so I look at this, and the last company I was the CEO of before I joined Harry and his team, we weren't cloud anything. But I'll tell you what, when the power went down, we went home because there was nothing more we could do. And so I guess what I'm saying, guys, is, and I think there's kind of a common theme here is, yeah, so we've got our T1, and then we've got a redundant system. And if both those go bad on the same day, you know what, go home and grab your fishing pole. Because it is time to go. The world is moving against you today, and let's start it with another day and a fresh look.
Okay, so thank you, Tom. Just a reality check, folks. We have about 10 minutes, so we'll hear from some people we haven't heard from. So, Jeff, tell us what you know to be true.
What you're all talking about is what I do for a living. So I'm the connectivity guy. So I can tell you that I've got thousands and thousands of customers, and there are problems once in a while. But if I look at the whole portfolio of our customers, it's very seldom. And we build redundancy, and we'll do a T1. You know, when you're talking about redundancy, DSL is not redundancy, because the copper is copper, and the backhoe, it loves both, by the way. And it's usually a 3G, 4G, or a fixed wireless kind of a disaster recovery. Other than the federal government, who gets third and fourth levels, people go with it. I've got retail company stores with 200 locations, and they'll have MPLS over T1, and then their backup is MPLS over DSL, something along those lines. But they all live with that inherent risk. That's life, and it doesn't happen often. We do call routing when there's horrendous problems. Anybody that lives in Southern California knows about the rains that hit there a couple years ago. That was disastrous. We had hundreds of customers down, and we did a lot of call routing. I mean, you just do what you do. Life happens, snow comes down, there's typhoons and hurricanes and tornadoes, and I think we've actually carried on this part of the conversation way too long, because I do this for a living, and it's not as bad as we're making this all sound.
Okay, so let's, why don't we maybe hear from someone we haven't heard from on the virtual desktop topic? Okay.
Probably the feedback zone if I stay seated.
Yeah. Well, come on up and get on camera, sir.
Yeah, have a seat.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Introduce yourself to
Is it Zach? So Zach started the conversation talking about an actual deployment of VDI. And I would love to hear some more experiences on what's worked. I've been doing terminal services forever. I'm still hanging on to terminal services, but I can't get the desktop performance in a WAN situation from a terminal server that's not in the building to a thin client. HP makes a great thin client device. They really do work better. The whole remote FX campaign was, I think, promised a lot but didn't deliver for me. Maybe somebody could comment on that from real world experience. And if VDI is real and it can work across a WAN, I would love to hear who's doing it and what you're using to make it work. That's a question.
Okay, thank you. And we have a hand go up. Sir, you'd like to take a first crack at that? Okay.
So we've been using, well, first off, we service just law firms, and they have a lot of application needs. So we've been using and they have a lot of branch offices. So we've been using a combination. We've been using Hyper-V. We've kept it pretty simple. Most law firms, are under 100 users. So we kind of focus on the 20 to 100 user law firm environment. And we look at what the apps they're using are and what their use types are. And some users, file clerks, whatnot, are fine on terminal services. And then there are more power users who need more apps, more control, something different from everybody else. We put them on a VDA solution, a Microsoft VDA. And then we look at apps. And if we have apps that don't require any integration with other apps, then we use remote apps for those. Out to whoever needs them, whether they're on a VDA, so let's call it a virtual, desktop. Push the apps out to the people who use them. We take the users who can all survive on a terminal server. Users who need more, we put them on VDA, and then we use remote FX, and just for the people who need the interaction, we enable remote FX just for those users. And just kind of using that flexible combination, we really have a service to everybody.
Now, is that on site or do you use the VDI remote?
We'll usually pick one of their offices. If you want to go get some space in data centers, fine. We usually pick one of their offices and we'll put the solution in that office. And then we'll back up usually to a Microsoft solution. So we back up all the virtual PCs, and we back them up to a Microsoft EPM, and then we just push off that stuff to another site. So,
what's the user experience at the remote site going into the VDI?
It's been very it's been perfect. We really have had no complaints. Perfect. It has been. The internet browsing for some reason isn't quite crisp inside of I'm hoping it fixes on 2012. But it's just not as crisp. But outside, that's the only thing we see is when you're in the VDA, because that virtual NIC just doesn't seem as good as real NIC. I don't know why, but outside of that, it's been perfect, and we can get most devices to work okay with the real NX. So.
Can you write a detailed article for Harry to publish in SMB magazine?
I have time for one more comment to the question. Then I need to start kind of wrapping it up with a couple of housekeeping notes, and we also had a request from Larry. Maybe Tom, you can field this right at the end. Is what is Cloud Nation? It's a good question, so we'll kind of end on that. Sir, your comment, James Riley.
In line with what you're talking about, it really goes back to what Karl said early on, which is managing expectations. And what we've seen with remote is if we have a high bandwidth, low latency connection, it works great. And half the time you can't even tell whether you're local or WAN. If you have lower bandwidth or higher latency issues, or you're going across a VPN and your hardware isn't doing the right thing. So it really just comes down to architecture. And that becomes the core of it. Because I've got clients running terminal services remote, and it sucks. And we just manage the expectations. And they don't have another choice, so it's what they have to do. But we manage the expectations, and it works. But it's not fun. I would want to go out and not do good things if I had to live on it, because it just would be horrible. But they're able to manage that expectation, and it works for them. But it is that bandwidth utilization that's really the core issue.
Okay. So thank you very much, folks, for participating. A couple of comments. You had one, okay, I was going to say, I was just walking by, and maybe a quick comment. I have a question for you in terms of our curriculum development, our content development for the SMB Nation Spring Show. So the Spring Show is over at the Microsoft Conference Center. A lot of you have asked for us to do things there again, especially the Seattle contingent. It's world class. It's fantastic. So we're back, and that looks like that's going to be an annual spring show. And what we did last year worked really well. We had a single topic. We had Windows 8 right after it was announced in Barcelona. A couple days later, we got to look at the preview candidate. I like that format, quite frankly. I think Jeff Middleton did a fantastic job with that concept, the single room, the single topic. And so my sincere question to you is if I told you I were trying to develop an event, 200 attendees, engaged, enthusiastic, that's about what we had last year, about 200 on site. Is there enough there with this topic in our community to entice and engage and get people excited about a 2-day up in Redmond in late February So virtual desktop VDI seriously, is that a good topic?
Would it be would it by necessity be Microsoft centric?
No, I think we have some flexibility. Microsoft's a player in the game,
Of course.
Obviously, but I think Citrix is a friend of Microsoft, right? So give me an example of what would be a not, and forgive me.
So Citrix, whether it's VDI Box, Zen Desktop, VMware View, Quest V Workspace, those are all VDI players.
Yeah, I think we could open it up to be more of an industry discussion. I have that flexibility, as long as Google's not.
Harry, are you thinking all desktops or including servers or?
Well, all of the above. All I'm saying is there enough there for a 2-day intensive, single topic? Yes. And show of hands, yes, a 2-day intensive? That's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. I'll make a note of that. We could do that. Okay, so hands-on lab, we could do that. Okay, so guys, if I'm selling something, if I'm selling healthcare and it's an election year and you're talking foreign policy, if you're not buying healthcare, I don't want to get stuck in committee. Okay.
I would make sure to add mobility in the cloud too.
Okay. All right, and I think with the segment, I think there's probably enough there to meet an attendance goal. Is my second question. First of all was topic. Second was attendance, and that's my business model. So I just kind of need some feedback. Appreciate your emails, harryb@smbnation.com if you have any more insights. Tom, why don't you take us out? The question was, what is Cloud Nation? And then we'll get to the town hall meeting.
Absolutely. So before I even go there, just thanks everybody for your feedback. This was just really valuable, and I see there's a lot of strong opinions, and I think we're all just looking for best practices. So this was a wonderfully effective session for me, and I appreciate that. I wanted to say thank you. The next thing is there was a question about Cloud Nation, and Cloud Nation is, we kind of did a sneak preview at the show, and basically what it is if you will, is a bit of an extension of SMB Nation, and really it's the result of our community talking to us over the last 12 or 18 months about, quite frankly, what's happening is our community's come to us and said, okay, there's this thing called the cloud, our clients are asking about it, we want to be able to serve their needs, and we're not sure exactly where to go or how to get there. There's 1,000 cloud vendors out there, and are we supposed to individually go out and try to negotiate with the top 80 that we want to deal with, and then once we negotiate, are we supposed to, how we put it into a platform and this kind of thing. And so what we did is we took a good hard look at it, and what we've done is we've come up with a concept. We brought it to a couple big technology partners, including Microsoft and Citrix, who are very, very strongly behind it. And basically what it is it's about 3 different things. It's about, number one, it's about education. And I think that's very important. And not only initial education, but ongoing education. Number 2 is about certification, which would include initial certification, and then what I would say is expert level certification, which would include like a certified data migration specialist, some things like that. And then number 3 would be a platform that would provide a unified billing system and the ability for us to add technology vendors, kind of best of breed. So we vet the technology vendors, we negotiate the cut, if you will, that our resellers are going to get, and it would be a scenario where you would be able to go to your clients in your own white label environment that would be branded by you and say, okay, we want to spin up the baseline virtual desktop, we want to do Outlook and Exchange, we want to bring in Microsoft Office Professional, and we have these other, what we're trying to do is we're trying to touch bases on everything that your clients would be looking at from a technical perspective. And so, you go in and do a technical audit, whether it's line of business application, whether it's managed print services, whether it's VoIP or UC, to be able to bring all those together in an environment that is 100% channel friendly and is doing what we've done for the last 10 years, and that's kind of serving our channel. And it's exciting. We're going to be doing some webinars on it in the next couple weeks through the next couple months. It's expected to go live on January 1st, and I have to tell you, I mean, if you stopped by our booth, the show here and saw it, it was very exciting, and what was most exciting to me was just, you know, we had a guy that stopped by, and toward the end of the day, and he said, really? He said, you don't know how many times I've been on the phone in the last year trying to find this. And then, like, as soon as we opened up the next morning, he was back again, and he was just so excited about it, and it makes me happy, because I do know that this is a new paradigm, and I think this is a good thing for our community, and hopefully we do a great job with it. So that's what it is. Okay. So having said that, guys, thanks for a wonderful session. Really, really appreciate it. Over the next couple months, if you want to learn more about Cloud Nation, we're actually, as of November 1st, an entirely new site's going to go up, and you can go in and kind of check it out. So thank you very much for the question, and I hope I didn't talk too much about it. Thanks. What are you doing right now? I'm doing a podcast with Karl Palachuk.
There you go. Good, yeah.